This lesson is about making Iron Gall ink. The most used ink in antiquity, so the Greeks, Roman, at least for the Western world, was a carbon-based ink. So the simplest form that we can imagine, so carbon just crushed, mixed with a binder, gamma arabic generally, and that is. So basically that was the ink used in antiquity. Then in the Middle Ages we have the Iron Gall ink. Easy to make. Carbon-based ink are the most simple. Even Iron Gall ink is pretty easy to make. And this is what actually the best advantage of this ink that made it so widespread. But the most important aspect is the permanence. While carbon-based ink can be easily washed off from a parchment, erased from a parchment, from a paper, on the other hand, Iron Gall ink is very permanent. And so basically the first applications of this ink was basically for legal documents, because it was difficult, quite impossible to erase it. We make Iron Gall ink with two basic ingredients. So we need a tannic acid. A tannin is present in many species. In general, for Iron Gall ink there was used oak gall. That's the name Iron Gall ink. Now this one grows on the trees, on the oak trees, and then it was used iron sulfate. So we have a little bit here. In antiquity it was called vitriol, green vitriol, to distinguish it from the blue vitriol that was copper sulfate. We start with the gall and we need to crush them. Let's see, basically this one is the inside. There is this kind of pulp. So externally it is hard shell. Inside there is this kind of a powder that's easy to scratch. This one. Now we can transfer this powder on a beaker. We add some water and we will leave this one to sip for at least one day. We want the tannic acid from the crushed gall to transfer into the water. We are back in the lab, so we have our solution. So what we do now is we want to filter it, coffee filter or something like that. We brew the solution over here. So this will be the tannic acid with water. Tannic acid is over here. Crushed galls left in water and then strained. Iron sulfate, this one over here, and this is it. Let's look at what happens here. Tannic acid is a little brownish but almost transparent. Now some iron sulfate in this solution. It turns immediately black. And I made my Iron Gall ink. We did this mixture, tannic acid plus iron sulfate, and we got this black ferrous tannate. This ferrous tannate, so the one black that we have here on the bowl, is water soluble and is the actual ink. And we can start to write something. CH SOS. This ink, when is applied on the paper, is absorbed. By absorbing the oxygen in the air, this ferrous tannate becomes ferric tannate. Ferric tannate, it isn't water soluble, it's not water soluble. Actually, it becomes as a pigment, so it becomes like small particles, those small particles have entered the paper, and these particles now are stuck inside the paper. During this oxidation, the color will change a little bit from this nice black will become a more brownish color. And this is how you make Iron Gall Ink. Caius Plinius Secundus, also said Plinius the Elder, was a Roman writer, philosopher. He wrote about an experiment about a piece of papyrus. He noticed that on papyrus that was soaked in water containing tannin, like we spread the tannin over here in this area, we spread some of this tannin that we took just from the gall. So we apply some of it. Once there is this iron sulfate, it changes the color into black.